Alrighty. So, this has been a long time coming. So, rather than try and formulate some sort of constructed argument, because that never seems to work out for me, I'm just gonna sit here and rambling in my Speedo, because, well, you know, sex sells. But today we are going to be talking about the concept of innocence and purity, and how, in essence, it's kind of bullshit in the modern day. So, if you know me, and if you don't, I'm thank you. I would rather not be known at all. You might know that I'm a big fan of the political theorist Hannah Arendt, and her concept essentially of the banality of evil, and totalitarianism. We're going to skip over the totalitarianism for today because I think the banality of evil is a far more interesting concept. But in essence, while in Israel, Hannah Arendt was asked by the New York Times to cover the trials of one Adolf Eichmann, a average bureaucrat who worked for the Nazi Party scheduling trains to the camps. You know, the camps where the Jews died. So Arendt's whole point was, mainly it's just an expose. It covers everything. It covers the trials, it covers Eichmann and his personality. But more than anything, the thing that stuck out to people was Arendt's concept of what she calls the banality of evil. It's widely misconstrued as anyone can be a monster, when in reality the concept was about how, well, someone dumb and pathetic and kind of cliche like Eichmann, who really just wanted job security, wanted something that he could do for a living that wasn't torturous. He liked scheduling trains. He wanted to pay his bills. The concept was, in essence, that average, everyday people are essentially complicit in very large structures and systems of exploitation and oppression and just genuine evil without actually having evil intentions themselves. Now, that's not to say that Eichmann didn't know about the camps and the final solution. He genuinely did, and he was sentenced to death for a reason. He fled to, what's it called? I think Brazil, somewhere in South America, with his family, and was captured by the Israeli Secret Service solely because he was very largely responsible for massive amounts of death of people. And looking at that and looking at average everyday people, most people were not brainwashed in Nazi Germany and the Third Reich. In fact, they were very supportive of Hitler and his agenda. He was democratically elected. So the banality of evil is not that anyone and everyone can be a monster with evil intentions. The idea is, in essence, that we, as average everyday citizens and consumers of products of capitalism, which we're going to touch base on later, we are complicit in the evils of the world. I eat chicken not knowing who killed it, what the chicken looked like, how it was treated, and we can have pretty good ideas and absolve ourselves of those things, right? Because the farther away we are from something, the more it seems like we are innocent. But in reality, we have our own little small amounts of evil each and every day, and we justify these actions by very honest, very human motivations. I was hungry. My iron levels are low. I need some protein in my diet. I want to get stronger. That's why I ate some chicken, knowing that in today's day and age, the chickens and livestock are not treated well. They're over antibioticized, or they're treated with a lot of medicine that is doing a disservice to all of humanity, and is probably going to contribute to the next global pandemic. So said Bill Gates, and I think factory farming is going to be the next cause of the next disease that our antibiotics are slowly not being able to defend against. Or take, for example, our cell phones and the thing that I'm using to film this video right now. It's the land of Africa is raped for its minerals. Chinese laborers are paid shit wages to manufacture these things, and we kind of all are aware of that. And if you're not, I don't know what rock you've been living under. yeah, your cell phone is not made by ethical means, and we can try and sustainably source these things as much as we can, but the reality is that humanity is not innocent. And going back to the biblical idea of the fall of man and the fruit of knowledge, you can start to see how the more you look into things, the more you can just see humanity as a failed project, or as something evil and terrible, and something that shouldn't be there in the first place. But we love, in this modern day and age, to point fingers, right? Because we have all this information. And with this information has, I think, come a lot of anxiety for each and every one of us. How do I remain the good one? How do I remain pure? How do I remain the innocent one, absolved of the guilt of the world? Because I'm just an average poor consumer, right? I'm not the massive companies, I'm not the wealthy, I'm not the elite, overlooking the fact that the elite are just, in essence, people, right? They just happen to be the ones at the top right now. Like, people fall and rise and grow and die off, but at the end of the day, people, and people have very simple human motivations for why they wanted things. Everyone wants power. Everyone wants money, which is, I kind of laugh at the idea of, it's like, they're doing it for money! Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. I go to my job because I want money. I'm making this video partially because, well, it was either this or become a porn star or kill myself. So, I guess I'm doing this. Which, you know, I'm trying to, like, get back into shape. I haven't been to a pool in a while, okay? Like, I'm trying to remind myself that I am hot and that I am attractive. And this is my nice lifeguard parka that I can use to cover up and be a little bit more demure. But we all are a part of humanity, right? We all do contribute to the cycles of oppression and the exploitation of the masses because we all benefit from that, right? We all benefit from mass production. We all benefit from the exploitation of labor. Someone has to make your Starbucks order. Someone has to make your McDonald's. And that McDonald's has to come from somewhere. Not to say that what's going on is the absolute ideal or the absolute best, but I think looking at terms of trying to somehow create a net positive with zero evil is where we are going wrong, right? Because life is violent. Life is limited. Human beings are, in essence, very, very limited in their capacity to actually affect change on their own, or even accomplish anything. There is the collective we have to think about, and the collective has to be represented by somebody. It's very hard to get mass agreement and consensus on anything today because the world and its progress has never been linear, right? So trying to, I wouldn't say necessarily divide humanity into the good versus evil, because humanity has done that for centuries, but to look at yourself as absolved somehow of the evils of the world when you do use these cell phones, when you do get your Starbucks order, when you do eat McDonald's on a regular basis, that we all know isn't good and isn't produced by very wholesome means, but we do it anyway, right? And in all honesty, humanity has kind of benefited. Very, very cheap production of food, very fast production of food. It has somehow contributed to the growth of the masses and the feeding of the populace, as well as the information highway and the spreading of information on a very large basis. Which has also contributed to misinformation, which has also contributed to just misinformation think tanks where people just ramble on whatever they want about, like, well, this. And do it for a living and somehow benefit from it because they can convince people with their charisma or their looks or their charm or their actual intellect and their reading skills that, you know, I should be listened to. I am the good one. I am the one who is doing more, or something of the sort. The idea of somehow trying to remain innocent and pure in an inherently diverse and mixed world is a very complicated thing to do. Because the more you look into it, the more you dig into it, the more you realize that, yeah, humanity has done shitty things to one another. And I like the idea of Frantz Fanon, the psychoanalyst who studied the Algerian War and the Algerian people's revolution against the French colonizers, that it's not about capitalism versus socialism, right? And trying to create a world of good versus evil, light versus dark, Zoroastrianism, God versus the devil, da-da-da-da-da. It's very easy to think in binaries, which is actually a fallacy because it makes you assume that there are only two choices, right? There are only good and evil. There is only black, white, and gray. When in reality, there's an array of colors, and there's an array of diversity and ways of living, and that most people just get by watching television or reading books in the solace of their own homes. Most people are unremarkable, and that's not a problem. But the more we look at mediocrity and banality and just unextraordinariness, right, as you're not doing enough, you have not accomplished enough, you have not earned the right to be comfortable and laid back and do nothing, is in itself defeatist, because we all need relaxation, we all need comfort, we all need play. We have been able to achieve what we have been able to achieve because we have luxury, we have comfort, we have cell phones, we have fast food and Chipotle, which I think is delicious. There's not really an easy answer to how do you live in the anxiety of a mass information, mass media world where you can easily learn how big your carbon footprint is or how much you contribute to the school to prison pipeline and the benefit and benefit from prison labor, which actually creates a lot of the products Walmart puts out, or maybe they still do. It's been a while since I've looked up on that stuff. Oh no! I'm not reading up on sources as much as I could be. Are you doing enough? Do you think you have been doing enough to absolve yourself of the guilt of humanity and your own humanness? Have you been eating healthy enough? Have you been using less plastic enough? Have you been recycling enough? Have you been walking instead of using your car enough? Have you been saving money enough? Have you been reading enough? Have you been playing enough video games enough? Have you been relaxing enough? Have you been wellness enough? Chances are the answer is no. Because humanity is not the ideal that it wants to portend itself to be, right? We are not all going to be supermodels. We are not all going to be the president. We are not all going to be incredibly important historical figures. And the idea that each and every one of us could be extraordinary, when in reality most people are banal, and there's the reason we call it the masses, is because extraordinary human beings kind of do exist. They kind of do stand out from the crowd. Gandhi, for all that he's worth, stood out from the crowd because he was able to accomplish something magnificent, which was the development of a sovereign nation free from British colonial rule. And even Gandhi was just a human being. He was a terrible father. He was, according to sources, he was fucking his wife while his father died. Even the most historical and innocent great figures of the world have very complicated histories, like Stephen King's drug addiction, or Martin Luther King Jr.'s affairs outside of his marriage, which are well known. And the more we look at it as, oh, finally, the evil has revealed itself, the terribleness of the world has revealed itself, the more we're doing a disservice to the fact that, yeah, humanity and people themselves can accomplish great things, and the more we look at the failures, the evils, the banalities, the more we're doing a disservice to both ourselves and the people of the world. Because it seems like we don't want to allow people to achieve anymore, because we know how bad it makes other people feel. And the fact that we are all in this world of mass information and mass media and massive amounts of global population itself, the more we realize how isolated and individualized and just common we are. The fact that there are just a lot of people who write books, and there are a lot of shitty books that get really famous because people like shitty books. People like mediocrity. It does serve a purpose, because eventually, like, the masses yield something great. We are able to pinpoint something extraordinary and develop something common that or not necessarily common, but universalized out of a very particular experience that stands out and brings hope and faith and revelation or salvation to people. You know? There is something still to be found in the past, as well as the accomplishments of human beings themselves, which is... We want to throw out the past, right? We want to throw out our histories and our memories and the things that hold us back, because we can achieve more, we can move more, we can progress more, and we can move past the evils of capitalism, even though society itself is still wrapped up in its own karmas. Marx's whole point, and I still need to read Marx thoroughly, Das Kapital is 3 Bibles worth of information, and most people have not read it. You read the Communist Manifesto and stuck. I know you did, because that's what I read in college. But from what I learned is, Marx's whole point was that capitalism will eventually, and just is in general, unsustainable. It will defeat itself because it cannot sustain itself, and it will progress into something more through automation and laborers such as doctors and lawyers and just people whose jobs seem important and absolute and unnegatable will become replaced by automation and robots and AI, which is why it's such a huge threat to humanity. Who has control over it? Who has the ability to create it in the first place and create work that can be done more efficiently and effectively? And are you going to be able to retire at 35 and relax in comfort? Is it even, are you necessarily bound to work your entire life? Does being retired make you evil? Does it absolve you because you've done the work and now you get to relax and tire out? Does being hurt and victimized and in pain and suffering absolve you of the responsibility of the collective of humanity? Do you deserve to take it easy? Do you deserve luxury and comfort? Do you deserve to look good? Do you deserve to take care of yourself? Do you deserve to be selfish? Is selfishness ever justifiable? Apparently in America it is. Because we realize that, life is short. YOLO. At the end of the day, there is no right answer, right? And choosing the right answer for yourself means necessarily, in a world where we can pinpoint and trace and track everything about you, that your positive actions to benefit yourself necessarily do come at a cost of others. How much you can reduce that and reduce harm on the people in your lives, well, how much benefit can you create? Are you allowed to just take it easy and retire and just talk with your friends and vacation in Mexico or whatever? The more you look at it that way, the more you're doing yourself a disservice, because no one is innocent. No one is pure. There's no such thing as a pure-blooded race, and we all are intermingled and intermixed into the world and the bloods and the races of the world. The more you try to isolate yourself as something larger and more significant than the rest, that is kind of the ego of the world that is going to destroy other people, and I would argue is more evil than being selfish. Because being selfish is not being significant or isolating yourself as special, right? Being selfish is doing and fulfilling the demands of your body. Eating food that you need, taking as much as you need, taking the space, taking the time, taking the energy. That I feel as if people who have been subjected to the oppressions of the world or isolation or abandonment know better than anyone. You kind of do have to focus on yourself after a certain point, because you realize that people are not going to help you out. People are not going to shelter you under their wings. People are not going to stick their necks out for you. In fact, they're going to push you away and make you and force you to stick your necks out for yourself. We now live in a world where millennials are called the narcissistic generation because of internet technology and the fact that we have to do things like this in order to make a living and pay our bills, because life is just more and more expensive. everything is more expensive. There are more costs to keep up with. There's more information to keep up with, which produces more anxiety, which makes you want more money, more attention, more help, more everything. Yeah. So, how do we solve the problem of innocence? In America, in our judicial system, ideally, there is the concept of innocent before proven guilty, which I think underscores a very, very significant note that innocence only really exists in the concept and context of guilt. As in, you kind of have to be accused of something and proven innocent and deemed innocent when you are facing accusation, right? So to look at yourself as innocent, as if you cannot be accused of anything, of any guilt at all, is kind of missing the point. You're gonna have to cause trouble. You're gonna have to upset someone, and you're gonna have to justify your actions to yourself and to the people around you and the people you love. Going through the pandemic, I think we can all see how we are complicit in not so great behaviors, and also remind ourselves that that was a scary fucking time. Last thing I recall is I remember sneezing and coughing and feeling like I was gonna die and panic for 3 weeks. And then I remember being isolated for months on end and feeling resentful, angry, and bitter. And as my therapist friend tells me, anger is the emotion that loves you the most. But it's also kind of the most unsavory and scary emotion because it does upset and scare people. You're gonna have to do that. And unfortunately, people do have the right to cast you as the villain in their own narratives, even if it is banal, or you think they're not considering your point of view. Unfortunately, people do have to consider their own perspectives and utilize that to the utmost degree, because I am not you and you are not I, right? I have to live my own life. I cannot feed myself by feeding you. And unfortunately, if I want goals and if I want to sustain myself and keep up my boundaries, my lifestyle, my health, and just my relationships and the things that make me happy and fulfilled, I'm gonna have to consider myself at the expense of others. I am both innocent and guilty at the same time, and it kind of just zeroes out to a zero-sum game. Unless you're, the worst president in US history and do everything wrong intentionally to ruin the country for money. There are sometimes right answers and foresight that we had, that sometimes we are told the things that would just benefit everyone, and then people do the opposite and the wrong thing to the detriment of the many, or the majority. I think that is where we can see the concept of guilt and the concept of radical evil and radical selfishness and greed, which it's selfishness just to spite others. It is not selfishness to benefit oneself. It is selfishness to hurt. It is selfishness to undermine. It is a self-conceit that necessarily does harm to all of humanity. And did, and has. Lots of people are hurt nowadays, and social politics has become larger and more global than ever, and is now expanding to interplanetary space travel. Who's going to be able to get to go to Mars? Okay, yeah, sorry about that. I had to delete some data off my phone. So, yeah. When the planet dies, and the zombie apocalypse happens, what are you gonna do? Humanity is gonna reveal its worst self, right? Resilience, survival, courage. And you're gonna have to choose you and the people you love over strangers, like we all do. You cannot consider the world, because you do not know the entire world. You live every day thinking about and knowing that a place called China or Jongguo or Japan or Nippon exists, right? you don't know what's going on there. You don't live there. And even here in the United States, I've never been to Utah. I've never been to Nebraska. I don't know what's going on in these places. There is necessarily an ambiguousness to life that I just have to accept. How are you going to live your life in an ever-expanding humanity? How are you going to live your life in an ever-expanding, ever-terrifying, ever-anxiety-inducing world with more and more information that keeps you on edge and on your toes because you have to consider the new thing, the evil thing, the AI, the Mars travel, the anime Terraformars, where cockroach people and a disease from another planet are killing humanity. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do when cockroach people come to terrorize human race? Are you gonna remain an innocent bystander? Or are you gonna get your hands dirty and choose to live life for yourself and upset people? You know? I say this because my life has not been very savory or ideal or something that really brings me pride since the pandemic. And I don't know, I'm feeling a lot of shame over who I was and who I turned out to be and who I became, just from sheer circumstance and happenstance. Am I bad? Am I wrong? Am I a terrible person? Yeah. I mean, I am to some people. I can be. I think we all have the potential to be. And I'm tired of looking at myself that way. Because this life is not a speech competition where you get to be the most ethical, most awesome thing to get the one in the round because you have the best topic. That's not the point of life. The point of life is not to be the most good thing, the most person, the most human, the most awesome. The goal of life is to live it, to be able to continue it, to be able to share it and make it and create more of it, to generate life out of your life. Are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Are you damaged? Are you hurt? Are you broken? Are you poor? Are you disgruntled, diseased? Did you make mistakes? Yeah, chances are yes. I'm fine. I have nasal issues and like my own ish going on. I am on so much Zoloft, and I love my Zoloft. Those traumas are my own. My guilts, my breaks, my faults, those are my own. And I'm gladly living with them because the alternative is stagnating my life and waiting for someone else to give me permission because I have been granted the badge of honor of goodness, the badge of honor of innocence and purity. When in reality, a slave owner's baby is still a slave owner's baby, and that baby is being fed by slave labor, right? Like, we kind of do have to just acknowledge the origins, because those origins and those beginnings and those starts to things like this country do contribute to who we became and who we are. You don't get a pass because your life is shit. You're just as human as everyone else. Yes, the plastic bags you're using are bad. We need to stop. Yes, carbon emissions are an issue. And yes, your car contributes. As my friend once put it, you are not being stuck in traffic, you are a part of the traffic. Giving yourself the benefit of the doubt that even Gandhi was a shitty father. Even Martin Luther King cheated on his wife. You know? Living with your shame and being proud of it because it got you through your life. Acknowledging it and letting yourself be attacked and be resentful, be awful, cause trouble, be poor, be upset, be angry. It only makes you as human as everyone else. Yeah, and for what it's worth, Hannah Arendt, my favorite political theorist, she fucked a Nazi and had an affair with Martin Heidegger, her professor. You know, we all do things we're not proud of, and trying to be proud of everything, and even your shame is I don't think worthwhile. I think it's good to have your mistakes and your flaws, and your not so savory moments. You're disgusting. You're awful. Your spite. Your shit and your piss and your vomit. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill just because you have it. That's really all I have to say.
Boo!